Happy Monday, happy Monday, happy Monday. All right. So I hope that everybody had an amazing weekend. I know I did. It was a good time. The weather was beautiful. Now it's back to being a cold, um, 82 degrees here. Had to turn the heat on,
Cold 82.
bust out the the long pants
Get
and the
your Parker.
jacket.
Get your Parker ready.
I don't know how people can put up with this stuff. I'm gonna have to move to the sun.
They're literally dying on the streets, freezing.
It's unbelievable. I'm surprised that the roads haven't iced up yet. Like, how warm does it need to be before ice forms? I don't get it.
Great point. Great point.
I need to become a scientist and learn how to make ice.
Right.
I don't know how people can put up. Like, even past Kyle doesn't understand. I'm gonna have to. Oh man, Well, anyway, so we've got a fun week. This week's all about relationships, and no, we don't want to date any of you. Not really interested in it. Friends, yes, but the types of relationships that we're talking about, no, we're not talking about your marriage. We're not talking about your relationship with your boyfriend or girlfriend. None of that. We're talking about the relationships that you have with other people, other necessary components of real estate investment. Because right up there with like my biggest pet peeve questions, aside from full gut job, are is anybody is your blank investor friendly?
I mean, you really should have it like, is your pastor investor friendly? Is
Yeah.
your care investor friendly? Is the cook investor friendly? Because what kind of question is that? Are they investor friendly?
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, my typical response, or the response that I like want to give immediately after that when people say that, I'm like, is your blank do realtors like you? Do you have friends? Because here's my thing, like, this is a relationship based industry, and if you have trouble making personal relationships, like friendships with people, you might not. Your level of success in this will be limited.
Oh yeah,
very limited. And the reason is that you have to be a good person first and foremost. This is, we talk about at every level of this, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Mm-hmm. And that it doesn't, there's no such thing. Rob and I, we were discussing this earlier today, is that we've come from the corporate world. I have a lot of experience in the corporate world. You here and there, like, you've dealt with corporations through your business endeavors, because you've been pretty much an entrepreneur, sole proprietor, businessman your entire life. Mm-hmm. But what we really talked about was, if you're a good person, like, if you have talent, people who recognize that will invest in you, period. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with friendly this or friendly that. I can tell you, where there is a will, there is a way. And when it comes to business, those who truly see opportunity will, if they see opportunity in you, they will move mountains to do business with you. So this whole investor friendly has really nothing to do with, there are certain isolated instances where it's simply, my business doesn't do business with this. Like, it's not necessarily, is your title company investor friendly or not? It's, do they provide certain services that are commonly associated with investors? There's a big difference between being investor friendly and just, well, up until recently, I couldn't get French fries at Taco Bell. Right. That doesn't mean that they're not French fry friendly. It just means they don't serve them.
Well, I mean, and Taco Bell is not French fry friendly at all. We're really anti-French fry. But the thing is a lot of people misconstrue or misunderstand that there's certain services that different different people in the real estate industry can offer and that they can't. And the best way to describe it is like for Kyle is is this title company Kyle friendly or not? Is this realtor Kyle friendly or not? Because if they're not, it doesn't matter if they work with other investors, because if they don't work with you, what's the point? It's like that doesn't help you at all. Like what we talk about all the time is that there's two parts to this process. There's the data, evaluating it, getting it, understanding it, manipulating it in relationships, creating them, utilizing them, understanding how they work for both sides, and then making sure that you cultivate them and grow them. And this whole week is just about more relationship building. When you go and you talk to a title company or you go and talk to a realtor, what do you have to offer the realtor as an investor? Because they're not going to be investor friendly if you just call them up and like, hey, I need an ARV. Can you give me a CMA on this stuff? Hey, I want 14 of these and I need them in the next 20 minutes. Can you do that? No? Well, you suck. You're not investor friendly. Click. What's the point of that? So you have to know what you're asking for, what you're trying to get them to do, and then why should they work with you? What's the reason that they should be, Kyle friendly or Robert friendly or just anybody friendly? What's the reason for that? And it's what do you bring to the table for them? What do you have to offer for this realtor, for example, or for this title company, or for this appraiser or contractor or whoever?
Absolutely. So the theme of today is your realtor investor friendly? So like that's the big place that we want to start. And the reason why we want to start there is if you don't have MLS access, finding someone, building a relationship is the kicker to this. Building a relationship with someone who has MLS access is going to be a complete game changer. The reason is that in order to run accurate comps, in order to get the most accurate info that you can when you are in the process of wholesaling a house, rehabbing a house, buying and holding a house, is going to be getting comparable sales off of the MLS. And unless you're a realtor or you have, I guess at any level, is one you friendly or not. The big thing being is, man, Rob's phone always throws me off. It's the most obnoxious ringtone in the history of man.
There we go.
So the big thing is like when we're talking realtors, is if you don't have one, it's one of the best places to start, because we talk about it. What the expired listings are a great place to go and find investment properties, because generally the reason why a listing expires is not because of a bad realtor, it's because of a seller who has unrealistic expectations. And sometimes getting an investor to come in there and push them over the edge and get them to think more realistic about costs is what helps. So how do you find out if an investor is or a realtor is investor friendly? No such thing. First and foremost, it has nothing, because what you need to realize is that what we as real estate investors do is mutually beneficial to the realtor. Mm-hmm. And, right now, one of the things that is scaring realtors is the fact that what they call the iBuyer, the Redfins, the Zillows, the OfferPad, there are a bunch of different websites online. There are like HomeVestors, everything is getting one step closer to being able to automate the buying process. And so for realtors, they're unable to sell a house unless they're able to go in and get the listing. So, but what do real estate investors do? What do wholesalers do? We're finding people in distress. We are identifying people who want to sell their house before they even know. So you have a commodity for them, is that you're able to start building a relationship with a seller way before, more times than not, they've even considered selling their home, because we often walk into situations where we explain to someone how they're able to sell the house. So, that's why when we're talking about, do real, like, is a realtor investor friendly? Well, of course they are. They should be, because how often do we run into houses that are close to retail, or they want, hey, I want to get this number. Well, that's actually what the comps in the neighborhood are selling for. If you truly feel you can get that, I have a realtor that I can send put them in contact with you and have them sell your house. So for them to say that they're not investor friendly is completely and utterly ridiculous. But now the reason why they might not seem investor friendly is because they have a bunch of investors that are take, and there's no give, and, Rob can kind of better answer this, because, well, for starters, his cousin is a realtor here in town and has dealt with him over the years. So Rob, what are some big gripes that, we've had Sam on here before, he's talked about it, but, give it from your side.
So what the main complaints really come down to things like, investors that are wanting deals that are unrealistic. So when you're talking about like a neighborhood that is, say you have a house that just went on the MLS after it's been fully rehabbed, and, you have an investor comes in and wants to offer, 70 cents on the dollar minus repair costs and everything else. Well, the thing's just been repaired. I mean, so it is at ARV already, and they go in there and, talk about, hey, I've got all cash, or, but they want discounts or they want things like that. There's certain properties that, hey, that's not your target. So what you're doing is that the realtor has a fiduciary relationship. And what that means is a special bond. It's a special duty that they owe to their
legally binding duty.
Right. It's a legally binding duty that they have to their client to give them every single offer, whether it is one that they suggest they should take or don't suggest they should take. They have to pass that along. What that means is like for Sam, who is my cousin, it's easy enough because he can call me up and say, hey, I've got this guy came in with this offer. It's like, Sam, that's ridiculous. Click. If I'm not his cousin, or if I'm just a client that he knows just through work, then he has to pass that on. And so every time he's calling up his client saying, hey, I know that we listed the house for $500,000, but this guy says he can come in all cash at $300,000. Are you interested? No. Okay, thanks. Sorry, I have to give you this. So that's one of the things that throws people off. The other part is like, just let them know up front you're an investor. Don't hide it. Don't be ashamed of it. There's a place where you fit in and fill a need that they have. You need to understand what property that is. It's not on the brand new properties. It's not on the properties that have been rehabbed and remodeled and refinished. That's not where they're looking for an investor. They're looking for an investor on the expired listings, on the properties that have been on the MLS for 100+ days.
And the big thing too is, along the lines of properly representing yourself. One of the things that realtors see all the time is when a wholesaler comes by and refers to themselves as a cash buyer.
Right.
And wholesalers will blatantly lie to realtors and call themselves cash buyers because they connect the property with a cash buyer. And one, that's against the law, because believe it or not, little known fact, well, not little known fact, it's a fact that all wholesalers should know, is that if you don't have the ability to come up with the funds of a house, you can't put it under contract.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not. Does it happen? Does it always happen that way? No. And Rob will be the first person to tell you that. But if you do not have the means necessary, so like essentially the way that most contracts read is that if you are unable to assign the contract, you're legally obligated to come up with the funds. Like that is how they read. Do people get hung on it? I'm sure enough people get hung on something like that, but that's where wholesalers get a bad rap, is that they come in, posing as a cash buyer. And if they don't have the means to close on the house at all,
right, they
can get into some big trouble. And that's what some will do, is they'll represent themselves to a realtor saying, oh, I'm a cash buyer. No, you're not. Be honest, be upfront the entire time of, I've got a buyer's list. I want to be able to assign the contract. The next big thing is don't waste their time. Recognize that until you have something to give, maybe throw them some cash. You can talk about, a quid pro quo type of relationship, where you say, hey, I'll give you the list, I'll pass your name on to the investor who's going to flip this so you can get the listing. I will pass along, these types of listings if I see them, if they're close to retail. But go ahead.
Well, no, one of the big things, one of the best ways to build a relationship with a realtor, especially if you're not family or a good close personal friend or both, is ask them what problems they have that you could fix. So like, what listings do they have that they've had forever? Which ones do they have where, you know what, the homeowner is just crazy. They can come in there. You can come in there as an investor and say, hey, look, as an investor, I look at your property and I understand that you love it. But the lime green tile floor that you have running all throughout your house just is not something that is marketable right now. And I mean, I know that you don't want to tear it out or anything else, but the second I buy it, I got to jackhammer that out. If they have a property that is just in disrepair or whatever it is that you can fill in the blank for the realtor, do that. Start off doing that. You do good for them and they can do good for you.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the big thing, is that it's not a take relationship, and more times than not in the early going, they'll be more than happy to help you out. I've got realtor friends that I can call up and say, hey, can you send me your expired listings? Can you send me your canceled listings? And there's enough of a relationship built up there that they know that I'm going to do right by them. But a lot of times, and Rob, you see it and I see it, is that you get these investors that they don't even know how to identify a good property to begin with. And they call investors on, hey, I just went driving for dollars. Can you run comps on these 80 properties?
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, that happens, and it's one of these things where it's like, one of the things I would definitely suggest is limit the amount of times that you ask for them to do something for you free of charge. Because running comps, when they do it and they do it right, should take them 10 to 15 minutes each property. So if you ask them to do 80 properties, you're asking them to devote basically a day. Full on day, just doing your stuff for no promises of anything. Keep it at one or two, keep it at one if you can, and the other side of that is like, it's okay for you to ask questions, and ask questions. And, when or if you're looking for your own property to buy for you to live in, talk to them about selling your house. Talk to them. There's certain things that it makes sense. Just it fits together really well. Just take a chance to utilize them as well.
Well, exactly. And the biggest thing is that the best relationships with realtors are always had if you are respectful of them and their time. Because realize that realtors work 100% on commission. And so with that being said, is realize that every minute that they take away from their business, they're losing money. It's, Rob and I talk about this. It's like, we're passionate about the group. We're passionate about coaching. But every minute, every hour, every second we devote to this group, we're taking it away from our own investment business. And realize we have flips, we have wholesale deals. We've got a laundry list. We've got a team that we oversee to make sure that they're working. And so realize that when you are asking something of someone else's time, don't be selfish, but, always make sure that you're doing it with the best of intentions, and especially when it comes to realtors, have a couple lined up so that, you can, some are quicker to respond than others. Some are, more willing to help, because realize is that sometimes it's just because it's an emergency for you doesn't mean it's an emergency for them. And so, that's why it's always nice to have a couple other ones on the hook, is because, hey, if you need a comp and you need it run yesterday, they might be at a showing. They might be running an open house. And so they're going to get to you when they're good and ready. And that's the big thing, is that just make sure that it has nothing to do with whether they're investor friendly or not. The more times than not, what happens when you hear this whole, are they investor friendly? It's because they have been burnt so many times to be like, I just don't work with investors.
One of the things, and this is not a pro tip, this is just, this is one of the things I do is, and again, Sam is a family member of mine. And so, but every time I call him, the first question I have is this a good time to talk? Because if it's not a good time to talk because you're at dinner, because you're at a kid's sporting event, or at a church event or a school event, or you're just dog tired, or you're in a meeting or whatever, find out that it's a good time for them to deal with you first. Yeah. And then find out what's the right way to interact with them. Sometimes it's text, sometimes it's phone, sometimes it's email. Sometimes, because he's really good. He'll tell me, hey, I can't get back to this for a few hours. Like, that's cool. And the reason that he's telling me that is because I can get another realtor to run an ARV for me and run a CMA for me. All I have to do is ask. But if I know it's not urgent, I don't want to artificially put urgency on this for him. So you just, again, like Kyle's saying, be mindful of their time, like you would want them to be mindful of your time.
Because realize, like, after a while, when you've done well by them, it's one of those, Sam is a great example because him and Rob have done many, many deals together. So there's enough outside of being family, there's enough goodwill built up there to where when Sam knows that Rob is calling, he's like, I need to take this. Because, he's made Sam tens of thousands of dollars in real estate commissions, while at the same time, through Sam's help, he's made Rob tens of thousands of dollars, but it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So Sam knows, like, hey, I know that I'm going to catch this on the back end. I might run 100 comps for him, but I might make $30,000-$40,000 as a result of helping. And so realize when we talk about being respectful of their time, is as you grow up the priority ladder, if you put artificial deadlines on things and you take away from their family, it starts to wear on them. Because I know if it's one of those, if I'm Sam and Rob's calling, I'm taking the call. It might be inconvenient, but it's like, I got to do this and I got to do it now. Cause like, I know that if I help them, I get this. Don't take advantage of these things. Be respectful. Always do right by others.
One of the other things I would definitely say is that whenever you see anything on the MLS described as a handyman special, investor whatever, talk to the agent, see what their thinking is on that property. Look at the days on market. Again, if you can go in and help an agent with the property that has been on the market a long period of time, that's the start of building a relationship with them. That's a longer lasting one, because
that's a big thing too. And on that note is when you see those investor specials and stuff, that's meant to drudge up competition.
Yes.
And what's the big thing that Rob and I always say is, don't get into a bidding war. There's always another deal. But here's where having a relationship with the realtor really helps. And this is a great example, is that we've got a property that we're going to go check out this week. I have a relationship with the realtor. The thing is that I also know that there is a competing wholesaler going up against it. The one thing that I do know is that as long as I hit the same number, I'm going to get the deal. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, because the rapport is like all of the negotiations are going through the realtor, and my relationship is at a completely different level. So realize that's the other benefit for being a good person to these real. See, do you realize, like, what I just said there, guys, is that it had nothing to do with me being an investor. Clearly an investor friendly agent, clearly. But what trumps all of that is it's Kyle friendly.
Right.
And that's the big thing, is that my offer will get snuck through, or it's one of those, hey, he's $2,000 less than what you wanted, but I can promise you it's a quick close. It's cash. It's super easy to deal with. I don't know about this other guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know about these other guys, but I do know exactly what I get with this guy. And that is the type of relationship that you want to generate when you're working with realtors. And none of that has to do with them being investor friendly, because they're money friendly. They're money friendly.
It's the whole idea is to get them to be you friendly, and in doing that, that's you creating a relationship with them. And so, the big thing is like, if you come in and you are aware of their time, respectful of their time, understand, what role you have to play in them serving their client, then it makes things roll just a lot smoother. If you're going to a realtor just to get comps, that's totally fine. Understand what is the back end for them. Where do they get compensated on this? Are they going to get a listing from you? Are you going to recommend them? What's the story there? If you're just going to recommend, hey, somebody in like Grand Prairie, it's just a suburb over here. If you got, hey, whenever I see a property in North Grand Prairie, like, I'm going to recommend that they list it with you. Well, that's great. How many listings do you think, how many ARVs do you think they're going to run for you? Is it more than 3, more than 4? Versus, hey, I rehab properties. Every single one that I rehab, I'm running through you. I don't care. I'm loyal to you, period. How many ARVs is that worth when you figure out the average house at a rehab is going to go for $350? Yeah. What's 3% of $350? That's $10,500. So how often can I go ahead and ask them to roll an ARV, check an ARV for me and pull comps for me?
I know that phone call's worth 10 grand.
Especially say I only list 2 or 3 houses with them in a year. I mean, that's 30,000 plus. There's levels where what you're asking for is absolutely reasonable, and what you're asking for isn't. Even when you're just getting started, even when you're starting out, what you can always ask for is like, hey, can I look at your expired listings? Hey, can you help me with a comp here or there? Hey, what can I do? Do you have a property where you might need an investor, just to give them an idea of what repairs are needed? How can I help you? Because there's always something that you can do to help the realtor, even if it's just going and looking at one of their open houses just so that they have traffic through the house. That's a very little minor thing for you to do, but it shows that there's more traffic through the house. It shows that they were there. It shows that, those are little things that you can do, and there's no reason not to do them.
Absolutely. So there you have it, guys. So day one, talking about ours is a realtor investor friendly, and realizing that the realtor they're all investor friendly, whether they like to admit it or not, they are. And so they might not be dealing with a wholesaler up front, but I can promise you a lot of these guys are selling flip. So they definitely are investor friendly. So realize it needs to be mutually beneficial. Make sure that you're not wasting their time, that there's a good value proposition in there, and don't lie. Be completely upfront. You might need to pay some cash on the front end. I'll be honest, you might need to, and that's just to show them that you're serious and you're not going to waste their time. Don't give them a bunch of comps to run. Be selective. If you don't know how to identify a good property, buy our course, watch our videos, go on YouTube, something, get that information, get that knowledge underneath your belt before you go and overwhelm these guys.
Before you ask somebody to do something for you that's going to take 30 minutes of their time, an hour of their time, make sure that you know what you're asking. So that's the big thing of like, know how to identify a property, that's desirable for you, that you're actually serious about. Don't ask them to just run comps just to have them run comps. There's other things you can go ahead and use for that. And again, when you're not paying them anything for something, definitely ask them if it's a good time to talk to them before you ask them to do anything, because it is one of the things that I run into as an attorney. I have people will contact me and they're like, hey, can you draw up a small will for me? I've got 14 kids and 3 of them don't know about the others, and this and this and this and this. Can you just whip that out in an hour? No, of course not. And by the way, you just called me on Sunday. So
in the middle of the Cowboys game.
In the middle of the Cowboys game. Right. Why are you doing this? So
Absolutely.
anyway,
Cool. So there you have it, guys. Remember, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So you want to know if they're friendly, be someone that they want to know, that they like, that they trust. So
Absolutely.
until tomorrow's, my friends, remember, if you don't make dollars, it don't make sense.